Hey guys, this is AK over here, and today I decided to make a video to talk about functions, just the basics of it. But yeah, I realized I never really made a dedicated video about functions before, and functions in Python are very crucial. Python, especially, is a language which is really good for functional programming. Functional programming basically means that you write the code in the form of functions. So, I guess let's just dive straight into it. What are functions? So, basically, functions are a block of code. Let's just say, for example, I'll just give you an example function over here. So def function name, you can write function, like you can write any sort of function name which you want, and this is the syntax of a function. So let's just say, okay, let's just say we want to find a square of number. So def square, the name of the function is square. Def means define. This is the syntax. All right. And over here we have some code. There's some random code. I'm just showing you the format, and that's it. So basically, function is a block of code, and what a function does is basically, for example, we want to let's just start a question, and that way I can help you guys. So to understand what it basically does. So there are three parts to a function. There are two parts to a function. The two parts are firstly function definition. Function definition. I'll just write it over here. Function definition and function call. There are these two parts to a function. These two are basically the main building blocks of a function. Function definition and function call. So let's just start the first example. What if we want to store square and cube of number in a function? Like we want to write a function which stores the square and cube of a number. So if we write def and the name of the function is, let's just say square, or do we want to store both square and cube? Okay, let's just say store. The name of the function is store. And what is it storing? It's storing squares and cubes. And the cube of a number. So for the number n, let's just say n. N is the number. Def is the syntax. Def. This means define. This is basically what is known as function definition. Whenever a compiler sees this line, it automatically understands that yes, this is a function. So it is basically for the compiler and obviously for us to understand that we are writing a function. So this is the syntax: def store n. What is n inside this bracket? This bracket over here, this bracket, inside this bracket, there is something known as a parameter. What does a parameter mean? A parameter means the variable which we store inside a function. So def store, like we have defined a function called store. What does it do? It stores the square and cube of what? Of a number, and that number itself is a parameter. For example, if we had a function to give ages, for example, return, let's just say if we had a function to return sum, we would have written def sum, and then sum of what? Let's say sum of marks. So what would have been the variable inside? Marks. Okay. I hope you guys understand this. So moving on, def, what do we want over here? We want to store the square and cube of n. So now let's just start. Def store n. So there is a number. What we are going to do, we are basically just going to square it or cube it. So basically, let's just say a variable a. A is going to be the square of n. So n into n. Pretty easy. And b is going to be the cube of n. So let's just say n into n into n. Alternatively, you can also do something like this. You can use the exponential function n cube. So n raised to 3, n raised to the power 3. Even this is something which is possible. Okay, so I'll just stick with this. Both of these are just two ways of writing the same thing. So n into n into n. So now what we want to do is that now we've stored, like now we have defined the function, and inside we have written what a and b are. A and b are the variables which store the value of n into of n square and n cube. Now what we want to do, we basically want to return that value. Return, by returning we basically mean that we want that value, we want the computer to store that value inside. So what we are going to do, we are basically going to write return a comma b. This is what we are going to return. We are going to return the values of n square and n cube which were stored in the variables a and b. So if we, yeah, so basically we have written a and b. Hopefully you guys have understood. Whatever you want, that is that value, whatever you want the computer to store. For example, you wanted the total of the, if you are going to do the marks, the question for marks, that you want to know the total of all the marks. So for that, def marks, and then what are you going to return? You are going to return total. All right. So now return a comma b, back moving back, return a comma b, and now you, the second part of a function is known as calling a function. This was definition. Whatever you did inside was basically was basically the middle, let's just say content. It was basically the content, and now you know what you want to return. You have, so you have already returned it. Now you want to call the function. Basically now your function is done. Now what you want to do is you want to call the function. Calling basically means this value will be returned to you. Okay, so at when you press return, it gets stored inside. Now when you are calling it, it will return it to you. It will either get printed to you, or basically the computer will just show the values to you. Let's just say it's in simple terms, the computer will show the values to you. So by call, and basically the computer will call the function. Okay, so how to call the function? So for calling, let's just say f1 is equal to store, and now 5. Okay, f1 is equal to store 5, print f1. Hopefully it doesn't give any error. Okay, all right, it didn't. So what did it print? 25 comma 125. So how did this happen? I'll just give you a brief summary. uh, we defined a function def store, we give the name of it, you can give any sort of name, and inside what was the parameter, we give n. What did we store? N. A is equal to n square, b is equal to n cube. What do we want? We want the square and cube of the number. A is n square, b is n cube, return a comma b. This is what we returned. And then for calling a function, this is known as function call. I'll just write it down for you. Function call. Wait a second. Function call. This is known as function call. F1 is store 5, print F1. F1 is equal to store, and inside, so function call basically means we called the same function. We just wrote this. This was the function store. And remember this colon. This is actually a part of the syntax for definition. Okay. Yeah. So store n. This is the function which we called f1, and we stored it in a different variable. F1 is equal to store n, function 1. I just wrote it function 1. F1 is equal to store, and instead of n, while calling, I gave the value to the variable now. What was the value? 5. I gave a random value. You can even give 6. Now the answer will be 36 and 216, I suppose. Yeah, 36 and 216. F1 is equal to store 6 and print F1. So what will get printed? The values which we returned, these will get printed, a comma b. I hope you guys understood this. This was basically the most fundamental example of a function in Python. Now let's just try. Okay, there's a question over here. What if the number is asked by user? So what if we want a user inputted number? So for that, what should we do? So basically we can write something like this. We can put n is equal to int input, enter a number. Let's just ask a number from the user. Hopefully guys you do know how to take input from the user. N is equal to int integer input, enter a number. Def store n, a is n square, all these things will remain the same. And instead of writing store 6, now that the number is just asked by the user, you can just write f1 is equal to store n and print f1. Enter a number, let's just say 7 and 49 and 343. Yeah. Hope you guys understood it. This transition was pretty easy. N is int input. You just have to write this above the function, not inside, above the function, so that the user initially inputs it. Okay. So hope you guys actually understood the basics of functions. And here's a homework question for you. The homework question here is the homework question over here is, let's just say yeah, basically you have to write a function to a function which says let's just say I want to actually try making you apply the concepts of if and else inside of a function. So basically you just want to have a function which says whether you can drive or not. So basically if you are under 18, less than 18, mm, can't drive, and greater than 18 can drive. So this is a function. This is your homework. You have to write a function which says whether you are eligible to drive or not. Less than 18, yeah, you just need to print this message. Can't drive. Greater than 18, can drive. And you have to ask for the user for the age. You just have basically ask the user for the age. I'll just write it down. Ask user for his or her age. Okay, so you just have to ask them, and then you will inside of the function you will make a function, uh, let's just say function drive. Okay, and then inside you will write if else statements, that if the age is greater than 18, print can drive, return, or return can drive, else you can't drive. Okay, so yeah, please post the code to this if you've done this in the comments below, so that I can check it, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. So see you guys next time.